and these are adults, right? But I did see there was a little bit of timing with the throw. Nice. That's just so cool. 안녕하세요, 도너튼 브로프입니다. I was in the Air Force for about 10 years. I spent a lot of time here in Korea, or I spent a lot of time with the Korean military, mostly their Air Force. While we were working together, I worked at Osam. I didn't get to see their honor guard. I know that they're very similar to ours. So my impression of the Korean military was always good, essentially just like our own military. Their training, discipline, and workmanship and everything like that was basically on par with our own military. I was always very impressed with their forces and what they were capable of doing. Very professional. They are the representatives of the military. For ceremonial purposes, they're very, very important. They display what the military, giving that honor to the deceased, which is a very, very important aspect of their job. Laying soldiers to rest, they're usually the last people to lower that individual into the ground. There's a reason why we call it the honor guard. Honestly, I think because the South Korean military has had so much more of an influence from the US military than the Japanese military has, or the Japanese Defense Force, I think that the South Korean military would be more similar to our honor guard, simply because they got a lot of instruction from the US. But I'm not entirely sure how the Japanese do it. I'm, again, more familiar with like how the Koreans do it. And so I've seen them to be mostly comparable to the US honor guard. And these are adults, right? Not like a child honor guard. Okay, yeah, just make sure. They shouldn't have to get out of each other's way in the center, kind of moving around and stuff. Usually it's timed perfectly so that they just move individually and everything else kind of goes into sync. I've seen a number of performances like this, both while I was in the military and when I was a kid. I would go to the air shows and I would see the honor guard perform, so the rifle spinning is good. Oh, so usually that's for distance marking. At least that's what I can assume that they're doing it for. It might be just for show. Normally what we do is we measure the distance between each other by putting up our arm and then just kind of angling our head 45 degrees so that we can see through our peripherals where the person next to us is, and we normally like touch their shoulder, and that gives us the right distance. Then there's another one that you raise your arm up like this, and so this is the distance. This is close dress. This is dress right dress. This is close dress. So they might be doing a form of dress right dress. It is at the right hand, so I would assume it's that, but it also could just be for show because they're also moving while doing it, and that's you normally line up, do your dress right dress. But they're the honor guard. They shouldn't have to do it dress right dress, so they should know exactly where they're supposed to be. So normally I hold the honor guard in a very high regard. They don't have to look. They know where their positions are individually. As long as they follow their exact routine individually perfectly, they'll all be lined up properly. So they just kind of trust each other. Same thing when they're actually spinning their rifles. The distance between each other and everything, it doesn't really need to be checked. They don't need to look around. They're supposed to be completely straight and rigid the entire time. And so they have a great deal of trust, discipline to know that they're going to be the right distance away from each other automatically. And that's through rigorous practice, of course. They do this on a regular basis. This is their job, so. I wonder what rifle they're using, because it looks like a 1903. That's probably one of the hardest things to do, though. They're so far apart from each other. So if you think about it, right, the people in the middle, they need to make shorter steps than the people on the end. They need to make much larger steps. And how to measure that exactly, it might just be down to planning, and of course practice, right? Timing is a little bit off there, but still. I saw there's a bit of issues with the timing. I don't want to be overly critical because I can't do this. and to be able to even get as close to something like this is impressive. But I did see there was a little bit of timing with the way the rifle was moving and then the kneeling and stuff. So there was a few people in the middle that were going a little bit faster than the people's on the edge. Yeah, that's actually where I was looking. Oh, I see, yeah. Okay, then that's probably what my eye picked up there. So he slipped a little bit. So now I'm certain that dress that they were doing there isn't exactly to measure their distance. They're just doing it for show. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's really a dress right dress. It doesn't seem like it's measuring the distance between them because there's even a couple of feet of distance. Decently spaced apart, they're evenly spaced apart. But yeah, initially that looked like was a dress right dress, but it looks like it's just part of their performance. Well, first of all, I mean, I like the dress uniform better. They're Marines because, well, I'm basing that simply off the blood stripe on the pants. But I'm assuming the Marines, right? 해병대, right? That's what I meant. Because the Marines, they wear the blood stripe on the pants. It's a really hard thing to do. Nice, nice. See, this I like much better when it's in sync, but it's that flow. And I see that a lot with like our honor guard, obviously the rock honor guard. Oh, nice. These moves are so much harder than like what the Japanese performance was. So I just love that like domino effect and stuff. Oh, the throw, nice. That's just so cool. Dang. Wow, styling. I love the tassels on the rifles too. It adds a little bit of a flair to it. So pretty cool. That's so hard to do. I actually did rifle training like this in an honor guard while I was in Civil Air Patrol, and whoa, badass. And then that I never was able to get the hang of the spinning of the rifle or anything like that as much as you practice. And we practiced with just a bit of wood, not an actual, because the rifles were really expensive. We had replicas of 1903s and M1 Grands. And they're extremely heavy and very, very difficult. I mean, they're really, really heavy and bulky. The wood, they're solid wood and steel. So to spin them around, especially with one hand like that and accurately, and incredibly difficult. 옛날에 고등학교 다닐 때, I was in what's called Civil Air Patrol. 진짜 군인 아닌데 그냥 조금 like Boy Scout 같아. 그때 I did color guard and honor guard, and so I had the rifle and I did just basic stuff, present arms and shouldering the rifle and then marching. And then with the color guard, I was also the rifleman, so I was on the ends. Two people in the middle held the flag. Either it was most likely the state flag and the American flag, and we did parades and yeah, just a few other ceremonies and things like promotions and that kind of stuff. Yes. So they have a good sense, well, of course, because they're practicing constantly. And while they're practicing, they can look and see, how far things are going and where they're at. So they get a really good sense of the distance that they have to throw and catch and do all that kind of stuff. It just becomes a second nature, just like anything else, so practice and practice and practice. There's a really, really cool one that our honor guard does where they sort of trade rifles, where they're standing in the lines next to each other like this, and then they swap rifles at the same time. So basically, this guy throws his rifle to me, I throw my rifle to him, and they do that in that sync where it goes down the line like that, and it's really, really cool looking. So yeah, that was probably my favorite move of the honor guard. Well, the Koreans were trying much more difficult maneuvers. I mean, there wasn't any movement involved, so that's one thing that I can say that the Japanese honor guard were doing. They were doing actual marching and rotating around. And the South Korean military obviously focused a lot on rifle skills and their throwing ability, and then that timing is just amazing. The ceremonial aspect of the military is so important because it's like the direct representation of what the military is, our honor, our prestige. That's why they need to be as commanding of their emotions as possible. They need to be it doesn't matter like the time of day or weather or any of that kind of stuff. They're doing their duty, and so they're a direct representation of what the military embodies, and that's why they're such an important aspect of the military for morale purposes, right? And then for ceremony, you need to have a dedicated group of people that help with ceremonies when it comes to promotions or ceremonies within a cemetery, like at Arlington, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. These are all handled by ceremonial soldiers. People are highly trained, dedicated to doing that particular job. So that's why it's super important. So I separated back in 2018. I was in the military for 10 years. Unfortunately, wasn't a part of the honor guard, but I do have a very close friend of mine who's now in the United States who was part of the honor guard. He was like their first sergeant equivalent in the Army, because again, I was in the Air Force. He worked at the UNC building and he did all of their ceremonies. So promotion, he would bus his people out to different things, events and stuff, and they would practice. That's actually in the same building or nearby where I work at Humphreys. So if I ever learned how to do any of this stuff, I'd probably never forget, just like this. If you do it enough, right, and you just never forget it, and I think that's what that sort of represents there. You just, things just kind of turn off, and you let your body just naturally. It's like with exercise, right? If you practice the bench press, for years and years and years, and you got really good at it, even if you didn't do, a whole lot of weight, when you notice the difference between someone who tries something for the first time and someone who's done with experience, you'll see that a lot of the little muscles that they have inside their body, they can't control them and they shake a lot, or they'll slip or they could injure themselves and these kinds of things. So even something as simple as like a bench press, you can really see when somebody has experience, or even they haven't done it for a long time, they're going to be able to, like chopping wood is a really great example. Chopping wood is actually a lot more technical than people think. When you do it a lot, you chop down trees on a regular basis and stuff, you kind of never forget that thing. So after watching all of that, I get more of like a sense of pride. Being that I was in the military, I found the ceremonial aspect of it really drove a lot of pride out of me, a lot of fill up with pride. And so seeing that, gives me that sense of nostalgia, I guess, in a way. And it's cool that, it was filmed at Osan because that's where I was stationed. And so I remember those kinds of ceremonies and stuff. So yeah, I would say probably mostly nostalgia there. All right, so today we took a look at both the South Korean and the Japanese honor guard and compared them a little bit. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.